Morning. We're here with Greg Clifton, longtime friend of 7P, has done some auctioneering with us, and longtime friend of Dr. Prud'homme, and has a great history with 7P. We just want to get some of his thoughts here today. Greg, thanks very much for meeting with us. When you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Dr. Prud'homme.
It started in 1985, and I was working for the Weekly Livestock Reporter, and I went over and met Dr. Joe and Mary, and I started working with them on their advertising, and became good friends. And then in '89, when I went out in the auction business, he was one of the first people to say, "Hey, you can help on our sales," and been a long time friend and just great family, and just congratulations on the 50th annual sale. That's incredible. In fact, I think it's the longest running production sale, Simmental production sale in the United States. So quite a history there and incredible program.
I think you're exactly right. It's the longest running Simmental sale, and we're really, really proud of that. Tell us about some of your memories of the early days of the sale.
You know, one thing that impressed me is at one time there was 1,000 cows, purebred commercials, and they didn't run a bull. Everything was AI. And Dr. Joe palpated every female. In fact, if I went to a sale and I needed a cow checked for pregnancy, I'd have Dr. Joe palpator, because he was tremendous. But their program was tremendous from the standpoint, with that many cattle, the cattle were run like commercial cattle, and they'd hold up, and the cattle would work for the customers. And he was very progressive too, he and Mary both, in trying to add new genetics, and I was able to help them with their advertising and marketing.
Yeah, that's a great point. He did palpate like crazy. I know I'd come home some nights and he would just be dragging in 9 or 10 o'clock. Dad, where you been? Well, I've been out palpating cows, and he'd be just covered up and stuff. And no, that's outstanding. When you think of 7P Ranch and where it sits in the landscape, just in the Simmental business here in Texas, what are some thoughts along those lines?
The cattle work. They're adapted to this part of the world in the southwestern United States. Simmentals are kind of cattle that's more acclimatized towards the north, but 7P has always made sure these cattle adapt, and they're productive, and I know that with their AI program and progressive breeding program, they tried a lot of different bulls, but they zero in on what really worked, and were the efficient cattle, and yet would hold up in East Texas. And cattle have a reputation of just being good, hardworking cattle that works for both the purebred and the commercial people.
That's awesome. His customer base, he has a ton of commercial breeders. What advantage do you see the 7P cattle being crossed with the commercial?
Well, just the advantage in heterosis is monumental, and the fact over the years, when I first started, they were kind of the yellow spotted Simmentals, and now they're more solid reds and blacks, and they've adapted to that change. What's interesting, one of the first ads that I put together for them on a bull sale was a bunch of R5 dignified sons, and we used one picture of a bull that it was a headshot, but it showed kind of his body, and it showed these large testicles. And it was funny, I put the ad together, and it was basically 7P Ranch, the sale date, the time, and that's just the number of bulls we were selling. Never forget, Joe and Mary looked at it, and they said, "Well, you've left off a lot of information." I said, "No, we're trying to attract people to the sale. They see a bull like that." Ended up being, at that time, the top bull sale in the country, and the cattle just it was really neat. So I've had a lot of fun with them in just the advertising and promotion, and marketing, and Mary was a big part of that, and just a great relationship. But they kind of turned the young guy loose and let him do some different things, and I always told him, I said, listen, people's going to get the information in the catalog. So make sure this is to attract them. Let's get that information out there. And it worked really well. And I took I think I was at 7P Ranch every 2 weeks for probably 5 years, taking pictures. And it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of great times.
This has been great. Thank you so much for your time and insights. And I learned a few things from this interview that I did not know. And man, that's pretty rare. I thought I knew almost everything about it, but
Sure.
I appreciate you, Greg. Thank you very much.
You bet.